All right, we got more chairs. We got some more in the front row. Was that funny? No one wants to sit in the front row? We got more chairs up here. Um, uh, Kevin, oh, there you are, Kevin. Kevin, would you mind asking them to just put a few more rows in case we have some stragglers? Ask Sanborn Center to just put a few more rows of chairs. Would you mind? Yeah, yeah. We'll just put a few more just in case we have folks coming in. We have some more chairs up here. Feel free to find one. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Good morning. Let's see. Sound check. You guys all hear me okay? All right. And I'll remind all of our speakers, please make sure you are speaking into the mic and be gentle with this podium. It can slide around and so can our mic. So be cognizant of that. Everyone hear me okay online? Excellent. All right. Good. Well, good morning. I'm Tyler Burgett with FDOT District 5 Consultant Project Management, and I am pleased to welcome you to our District 5 Design Quality Forum, the summer edition. I guess the music's not working. Alexa, play Ariana Grande Summer Mix. All right. We'll hold off. We'll hold on to that for later. All right. Carolyn, could you tell the backup dancers we're going to do that later? Yep. Let's see. And I'm going to take this off too. I only have one of them, and I know if I'm wearing one, then Ed Kester is going to want to wear one, and it's best I just put it away. Well, I know we're going into summer, and it's a busy time of year. We do appreciate you all being out here. I know we have, in addition to work, graduation parties left and right. I know a lot of you, your kids are getting out for summer release today. And some of you, I know your kids are already released for summer. If that's you, I, again, really appreciate you being here because I know your children are at home, likely putting the wrong kind of soap in the dishwasher. We appreciate you making it out here anyway. So, for any of you who are new, the purpose of our Design Quality Forum is, of course, to just exchange lessons learned, best practices. We craft our agenda. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Thank you. So we have a full agenda for today, and we put this agenda together with feedback from ACEC and industry and our staff. The purpose is to just share what's latest on our side with any staffing changes, process changes, any changes in our design criteria. And our agenda items for today are very relevant for the projects that we have. And we're always appreciating your feedback on what can make these events as beneficial for you as possible. So please feel free to reach out to myself and Catalina Chacon at any point if you have feedback on how to continue to, what topics should be talked about, as well as what would improve our events. So keep that in mind during today's agenda too. So today, it's a little summary. We have Jim Strohs, Director Strohs here to give remarks. And we have ACEC liaison. We have department updates from various departments. We have Lorene Bobo to give an update on our latest perspective of implementing safety in our projects, as well as we have our contract managers that are here to talk about some pointed items that we deal with in our contracts that we have with you all. And we have Iman. I was trying to figure out what Iman's talking about today, and eventually I was told by somebody else, just say that he's going to talk about things that I don't understand. But we are pleased to have him talking about electrical conductors. That's an issue that we have had, and he came up with a solution. So some of you designer nerds can appreciate the solutions that he's brought for you and your staff. We have Wade McLemore from Orlando Construction. He'll be talking about raised crosswalks. Any of you involved with those projects know that they've been high-profile projects, and some of these are hard lessons that we've learned of how to make these projects more deliverable to the public and better for the communities that ask for them. And we have our planning office here. Kelly Smith will be speaking about our planning organizations, and Dave Robertson will be speaking about our environmental review schedules. And our district utility office invited Jason Smith with SRD to share about the utilities, the critical path for our projects. So with that being said, let me do a safety briefing real quick. So for those of you here in the room, you are at the Wayne G. Sanborn Center here in DeLand. If we have an emergency and we need to evacuate, you can exit out the doors on either side. Be mindful of tripping hazards. If we do evacuate, we'll go over to the overhangs at the park to make sure we're all safe. Do we have anyone CPR certified? Oh, come on, guys. Anybody? All right, we got a couple. My certification actually expired, and you're all safer for that. All right. In the case of an emergency, I will call 911 and alert the front desk. With that, this is our first design quality forum since the retirement of Director Jack Adkins. We're excited for his retirement. And we're also excited for, this is our first design quality forum where we have Director Jim Strohs with us in his new role as Director of Transportation Development. So with that, I'll invite Director Strohs. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so as Tyler said, this is my first quality forum since Jack retired. I'll pause. This is usually where I hear groans and, sighs. I don't know if Alexa has a sad music playlist, Tyler, but Jack's been gone for a couple of weeks now, and it's safe to say that District 5 still misses him. Jack really set a good example of what it is to be a great director, and I was really fortunate to be able to overlap with him for a couple of weeks before he retired. And in the past couple of weeks, people have asked me, as director, what areas would I like to focus on in the next coming year? And if you've attended any of the past quality forums, you probably heard Jack cover the topic of our statewide performance measures and targets. You likely heard Jack say that D5 is leading the league in certain categories. But unfortunately, some of these categories, like project addenda, are not the categories that we want to be number one in the state. So while D5 has hit other goals exactly on the percentage point, there's still a little bit of work for us to do. And so that's the area where I really want to focus on this next year. The good news is that we can make this happen. And I want to highlight we, because in order for us to be successful, we need the folks in this room, you, our consultant partners. So if you attended the industry forum a couple of months ago, you probably heard Secretary Tyler say, we need your best. And that was something that really resonated with me. And so I always kind of remind myself that District 5 needs your best. So I hope you take advantage of the information that's passed along in this quality forum. These are topics that are important to our district and will help us meet those performance measures and get to where we need to be. Lastly, as some of you may know, our transportation industry family lost 2 members earlier this month. There was an incident on 995 where a tractor trailer ran off the road and struck 2 surveyors. So with that still being fresh, I just wanted to request that each of you guys focus on safety with your staff back at the office who go out in the field or work in the field routinely to do work or perform reviews. You may have all the proper MOT set up, the right personal protection equipment, but it's those actions of those other drivers that may impact whether you come home safely or not. So please meet with your staff, review your company safety plan with each member, and just remind them, to expect that unexpected. So thank you all again for coming. I'm now going to turn the program over to David Reed, who's going to give an ACEC update.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm playing the part of Scott Perfader today. I'm going to do my best to imitate him, which is a tough act to follow. And I promise for those of you who know me, I am going to be brief. That's a struggle for me, but I'm going to do my best. So jumping right in, I want to tell you a little bit about what we've got going on with the ACEC subcommittee or the liaison committee. I want to start off by talking about workforce development. It's one of the key points in the DOT compass. It's a critical element for all of us because it's not only developing the staff we have, it's also ensuring that we're filling that pipeline as we move forward for the folks that are going to succeed us in the engineering business. I want to tell you that the Workforce Development Subcommittee has been very busy, and I encourage you to reach out if that's something that's was interest to you. Janie Walls with Burgess and Nyepel is our local liaison to the subcommittee, so reach out to Janie if you want to get involved, or Len Becker is the subcommittee chairman, so you can also reach out to him, and I'm sure those folks can get you plugged in almost immediately. For those of you who haven't been involved, I can tell you I've been to several outreach for the STEM projects at different schools, and it's extremely rewarding. One of the things that really surprised me, and it may be a surprise to you as well, is these students don't know anything about engineering, let alone the specifics of civil engineering and what we do. So one of the things that we have the opportunity to do here is to engage those young staff or those young students so that they understand what it means to be an engineer. So as they go through their scholastic journey, they can set their sights on what they need to do to get engaged in a role in become an engineer as they move forward and fill that pipeline for us. Want to go ahead and point out a couple of events for workforce development we recently had. We had the Road to Your Future on April 30th. That was very well attended. Thank you all for those of you who did participate, as well as the PM conference back in May. Also understand there was a very high attendance there. We want to solicit your feedback on those. If you have positive things to say, we want to hear that. If we have constructive criticism, we want to hear that as well, because our goal is to continue to develop these programs and improve them moving forward. So we can't do that without your feedback. So if you attended those and have things to say, please let us know. To jump onto something that Jim was talking about is quality. We've got a quality task force that we're working with the department very closely to help improve things. And as Jim said, unfortunately, District 5 is at that top of the list for revisions during letting, and that's not where we want to be. That's a bad look for all of us. There's been extensive research into that, and we know mostly why those are happening. And there's one element that we, as the EORs and consultants, have completely within our control, and that's errors in pay items and quantities. A lot of those happen, and I'm not picking on the traffic people, I promise, but they happen to be in traffic signal and signal pay items. Those are items that we know we're working with local agencies. Those change, they have specific elements that you need. That's challenge number one. We know the BOE has to be updated regularly. That's challenge number two. And of course, there's ORD, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and the issues with developing traffic elements for the EQRs there. But that being said, we know what the challenges are. So this is an opportunity to steal one of Scott's quotes, is to run with the pace of a leader. This is a chance for us to show the department as consultants that we are on top of this and we're going to fix it. So I implore you, if you haven't already started instilling best practices in your QC of those items within your company, please do so. Whether that's an additional checklist, bringing in a new QC person, whatever that happens to be aware that that is a big problem, and that's a way we can show the department that we're committed to improving quality. Now, ORD, we all know the challenges of ORD. We experience them daily. We are the experts here. And I can tell you the DOT is also very aware of this. So ACEC is working with Will Potter up in central office to figure out ways to resolve this issue. So if you're having ORD problems, and I'm sure all of us are, I know we are, don't suffer in silence. Reach out to your ACEC committee members. Let us know the problems that you're having so we can bring that forth to Will and his group, because DOT then has the leverage to get Bentley to make those changes to help us all. So again, you're helping us and helping yourselves by bringing those points forward. The last thing I want to mention is some upcoming events. And so just to remind everybody, we've got the Transportation Committee next week, June 5th and 6th. So I know I'm registered. Hopefully you are as well. Look forward to seeing you all there. And then, of course, July 30th through August 2nd, we have the annual conference down at Marco Island, which is always a good time. So if you haven't registered for that, please do so. And with that, I will turn it over to Catalina, our DCPME.
Thanks, David. I was telling David, I'm like, yeah, this mic is going to be way too high for me, but thanks, David. Good morning, all. Yeah, I'm going to hold it. Oh, I can hold it if you want me to. That's okay. It's just me. I'm the shortest one. And I'm wearing heels. So, yes. Good morning, all. I just have a few updates here from our CPM office. I wanted to start off with our two newest members to our CPM family. Heidi Trevette, where are you? I'm going to call you out. She's back there. So, she is our newest supervisor. She came to her senses and came back to her family at CPM. So we're so happy to have her back. She has a lot of knowledge, and through her endeavors in other units, she gained a lot of knowledge, and she's coming here with a different perspective. We also have Anthony Miller, who is not here today. But he also came to his senses and came back to District 5. He's a consultant, in-house consultant, has been in D5 for a long time, went to Turnpike, so different perspective, different types of projects. So he's bringing back that experience. So if you see him around, please welcome him back. Back to some of the items that Director Strauss and David talked about was my second bullet there. So back to our performance measures. So we're going to start a new fiscal year on July 1st. And with that, we're going to lock in that fiscal year. And what I wanted to talk about today was we're going to lock in all of the lettings that are in fiscal year 26. So I'm going to ask you here, guys, and I've been talking to my staff in my staff meetings to really pay attention to your estimate, your phase 52 estimate, that any project that is letting in fiscal year 26, make sure your estimate is accurate. Make sure you have all of your pay items, all of your quantities, that your total amount is accurate, and then the date of your letting. So right now is the time to really pay attention. If you're having any issues, I know like yesterday, one of the PMs came to my office and said, hey, back to PHBs and RFBs and all this safety items that we're adding in our projects, the community's having concerns, they're having issues. So we're going to schedule a public meeting in July. It is 2 days after production. What do we do? So it is obviously a fiscal year 26 letting. And this is the time where I need you guys to really pay attention, because basically when we only lock in the next year. So like we are going to lock in 26, and it's basically telling FTC, hey, this is our plan. This is how we're spending. This is our plan to spend the money and how we're going to do it. And we need to deliver. And it's completely tied to our performance measures. So please, please, please pay attention to all of that. Back to quality. So I don't want to sound like a broken record. David did that for me already, so thank you. But all I'm going to say is ERC submittals. So a few things. One is, we deal with municipalities, cities, counties, local governments. So make sure that you're reaching out to them, that you're asking them for their reviews, that you're getting the right people to review your plans. I know that ERC could be painful, so it is okay if they just wanna get the set of plans via email, but just make sure you document everything. Make sure you document their comments, their feedbacks, and your responses back to them. Also, so make sure you check in with them. But there's a lot of turnover at the cities, at the counties, and all of that. So that's also good practice for you to be in constant communication with the locals. Also, regarding ERC, we're working with our estimates office, and some of you have been, it's my last bullet here, but some of you have been voluntold. Thank you so much ahead we're trying something that is not really new, but some other districts are doing it, but basically doing transport at 60. So I'm going to bring it back to ERC, but basically at 60% submittal, we have been seeing that any comment that is related to pay items or quantities, that you're not updating your estimate. So that's important, because estimates takes a snapshot, a picture literally of the estimate at 60s at every phase submittal. And this helps us with making sure we have enough funds for our projects, making sure the work program stability, back to our performance measures. So it is good practice for you to address those comments and address your estimates, especially at 60s, because that's when it really truly matters. That's when we have the most time to react. So make sure, so my request is please make sure you're doing that. And when you are updating your quantities based on the 60 submittal, A lot of the comments that Estimate sees is basically your EQR report and your plans don't match, the quantities don't match. It's always related to pay items and quantities, which is what back to David said, it is in your control. So once you update your estimate, please make sure you let your FDO TPM know so we can tell our estimates office, hey, you can make that the primary version of the estimate, and then they can take the snapshot. What else do I have? Okay, DCPME submittal. So if you already don't know, we are bringing back the DCPME submittal. We all know it's in every of our schedules. It is kind of like hidden float that we all know we have. And with this theme of quality and all of that, we're going to bring it back. And it's just so we have more time to react. So the PMs are going to start requesting your DCPME submittal. It's got to be a complete package. I am also working with our internal offices, making sure we have everything that goes into production at the DCPME submittal. And we're going to try our best. I know every project is different. There's different challenges, but we're going to just try our best so that there is less and less, anomalies, if you will, when we do this submittal. So the point of the DCPME submittal is more time for us to react. Your PMs are going to be doing like a cursory QA review, making sure we're going to look at those quantities. We're going to look at the EQ report and your quantities and make sure that they are matching, making sure that you are doing your proper QC. So that is one thing that we can do to help each other and make sure that we can improve quality. Okay, that's it about DCPME's middle. And then I talked briefly about the pilot project. So we are trying, I think D1 already does it in every single project. Basically, the request is, and we're trying, I think there is like 6 or 8 projects that we're trying. We're trying resurfacings, we're trying safety projects, we're trying POPs, interstate resurfacing. So we try a little bit of each type of project and the request. And I know we have been coordinating with the few of you that got voluntold to do this, but the request is we're trying out, we're like, hey, what if we upload transport at 60s, not just uploading the pay items, but also the quantities, including MOT quantities. So we're asking you to do your best, educate a guest to do MOT, your time, construction time, and then update the quantities and transport. And we're going to see, is that going to help us? Is it going to be better? We've had a few meetings. Some of you already do it as a best practice. Other districts are doing it. So maybe this will be the norm in D5. But again, we're trying everything that we can to try to be able to stabilize the estimates and avoid those swings. That is all I have. I have just one slide here, random, but just an announcement that I have a vacancy in CPM. So yeah, feel free to take your phone out and scan the QR code if you want to learn more about my vacancy at CPM. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it to Ed Castro or DDE. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me? All right. So I thought we could go one quality form without Tyler making a comment about me, but that did not happen. So the problem speaking at this part of the presentation is I feel like a broken record. So many things you've heard, I'm probably going to repeat again, but slightly different. So one of them is quality. So, I'm sure you've heard that from Jim, from Catalina, even David mentioned it. It's still an issue and an area of focus for the department for District 5. Jim mentioned revisions. I do want to say one thing, we are getting better. So as statewide, we look at our production reports, it is getting better. However, we're still having issues. And many times these revisions, they're coming post-ad when the contractors get the plans. And we've been developing these plans for 24 months. They've had them for 2 weeks and they identify some of these issues. So you can imagine why that's a concern for District 5. So what we'd like you to really focus on when you're doing your QA, your QC reviews are biddability and constructability. Make sure you really focus on those so that we can kind of reduce how many revisions we've been preparing the last couple of years. And also, as David mentioned, we want constructive feedback. We know we always tell you guys, look at what you're doing, make sure to really do a good QC review, but we also want to do our part. And one of the things that we've mentioned and it's been mentioned by Dave and a couple other several times, is ORD. And when you meet with your PMs, I know I've discussed it with several of you, Catalina has, when we come in for marketing meetings, is if you see an issue with ORD, how it's calculating quantities, there's discrepancies, please bring those up. Because we do meet statewide DDE, DCPMEs every month, and we do bring those up to our statewide counterparts, and they are working to resolve issues, but we need specifics, very detailed information of what you're seeing, how ORD is working, how it's calculating quantities, where you think we can have improvements. Those, you see we can make some changes and make things better. Please bring those up because we will elevate those and we'll do our best to get those resolved. Another area is RFIs and construction revisions. So one thing we'd like you to keep in mind is the timeliness of turning these around, because as you can imagine, when these requests come into you, we have a contractor sitting out there on the side of the road waiting to build stuff. So if we can't turn these around quickly, that could result in delay claims for the department. So please be mindful of that. Also, really coordinate with our construction staff and the CEI staff when it comes to these revisions or RFIs, because many times these can result in E&O issues. And we encourage you to go to the field and look at these issues. And many times you can develop a more cost-effective solution than what the contractor proposes to our CEI staff. So just be mindful of the schedule, the timeliness to turn these things around quickly. And the last area is projects on the shelf. So if you have projects on the shelf, you're bringing them off for a plans update, again, timeliness, schedule, please be mindful of that. Obviously, there's going to be changes to the FDM that are going to affect your plans, especially when it comes to typical section packages. So please be prepared to factor that time into the schedule. Many times you have plans that are in SS10, they're not ORD, and those need to be converted. That's going to take time, so keep that in the schedule. Also, there's a lot of requests that to maintain things, say, such as SS10, to not convert those. It's got to get DDU approval, and many times I see those right at production. So please identify those up front on your schedule quickly and send those requests in as soon as you know those, just to kind of help us move the process along and be a little bit more efficient. So that is all I have, and I'm going to turn it over to Lorene Bobo, our safety administrator. But I don't see her slide up there. There we go.
Hey, good morning, everybody. There we go. Very good. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Lorene Bobo, and I am the safety administrator for here in District 5. So here. Oh, am I pushing the right button? I'm apparently pushing the wrong button. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is that safety is in every single thing that we do. Every project that we work on, whether it's, in design or planning or maintenance or construction, safety is everywhere, including our daily lives. So a few things I'm going to go through today are some interim improvements that we have done and the results, some infrastructure improvements, enhanced collaboration. I'll explain that a little bit. I'm going to talk about a QAR that we recently had done related to ADA in our projects and in our daily lives, and then a little bit about the Central Florida Safety Summit. I put Safety Strategic Plan, but I meant Safety Summit. Okay, very good. So first I wanted to give you an update on fatalities that we had in our district in 2024. So we have decreased our fatalities by 15%. That's a lot of people. It's over 100 people that went home at the end of the day. There's still another 640 that did not go home. So our work is not done, but we're trending in the right direction. Why are we trending in the right direction? I don't know the answer to that. I know that there's a lot of really awesome things going on with the department, with our partners, whether it be in our projects, whether it be in our behaviors, law enforcement, the way that we're acting on the road. All of those things are contributing to that number going down, and it's a very positive thing. So we're excited about that. So this is our rate. So this is fatalities per million miles traveled. What you'll see here is that District 5 is trending in the right direction. We have the lowest rate that we have ever had. We are lower than the statewide average, which is good. We're actually the lowest in the state. So we have the most fatalities in District 5, but we have the lowest rate. And I wanted to share that because I think sometimes when we just look at those, at the numbers, it's like, oh, how are we ever going to get to zero? But we're moving in the right direction. We're doing good things. There's a lot of people that travel through District 5, and so I'm excited about that as well. Did you do that? Okay, thank you, because I did not push anything. So you may have seen this project that we've done on State Road 46. We were basically testing out what distance should we put these shields to be most effective. And so we put them out a year ago, April. We did a 6-month check, and then we just did in April, we did a year check. And people are slowing down. So we're really excited about this because that means a year later, there's probably a lot of folks that drive through there every day and their speeds are coming down. What's really exciting is that those most egregious speeders, those folks that are going maybe 15 to 20 miles per hour over, they've dropped drastically. We're trying to understand what may have been happening when we, that day when we got our numbers. Was that real? But overall, people are slowing down, which means that this is effective. So we're going to start deploying this in other places where maybe we can't do infrastructure changes quite yet, but we want people to know, hey, in this area, you really need to go 45, 55, whatever it may be. So I'm excited to see how we can expand that because keep jumping ahead. They're only about $2,500 to put them down. So it's a nice thing to be able to just go out and do. So you've seen this project before too as well. This is the pedestrian project on Orange Blossom Trail. And I am happy to say that we are still fatality free related to pedestrians in this 1 mile. So that's what, almost 3 years of no fatalities when we used to see anywhere from 1 to 5 fatalities in this 1 mile stretch. So it's working. I actually got a phone call just yesterday from a gentleman in Louisiana that heard about our project and he wants to know about our fencing standards and things like that. So this project is, it's making a difference, not only on that corridor, but across the country. So enhanced collaboration. So we have been experiencing some, I don't know, I'll call them uncomfortable things on our projects lately where we've done all the things. We've talked to the city staff, we've talked to the county staff, we've had our public meetings, we've talked to the elected officials, and then they're still not happy or they had no idea that this project was happening. I could spend the next 4 hours going through various stories and things like that. But what it did was it told us we need to do more. Typical resurfacing, maybe not so much. But if we are putting in raised crosswalks, chicanes, bulb outs, any number of things that are kind of changing the geometry, the way that people used to drive, the things that I used to be able to fly through here and now you've narrowed the lanes and I have to slow down. Yeah, that means it's working, right? So what we're trying to work on is at every single stage of a project that we are talking to the right people. The elected officials are the ones that get the phone calls like, how did you allow this to happen in our city? So that they understand, hey, this is what we're proposing. This is why we're proposing it. This is why this is a good thing. And if at the end of the day, they don't want it, then maybe we pivot and we do something different. But we need to keep pushing as much as we can to get these features into our projects because as we can see, they do work. And most of the time, once people have about a month or so to kind of, get used to it, they don't even remember what they used to drive through that they were so opposed to. So you're going to start seeing on projects that we are identifying those ones that, okay, we're going to need to do a little bit more on this project. And, maybe it means we go to more commission meetings. And maybe it's not so much that we're getting a vote, but we're getting everybody's familiar with this project. Everybody knows that raised crosswalks are coming and they're okay. So then 6 months later, a year later, when we come back and we're actually building them, they remember, okay, yeah, I remember the department coming and telling us about this project and why it's going to be beneficial. We had a situation in Cocoa Beach just recently. They actually voted for the raised crosswalks. We put them in, and 2 months later, we took them out. They didn't really even give us a chance to talk about it. So we learned a lot on that project and many others. I don't know that we necessarily did anything wrong through that process, but there is definitely more that we could have done to affect that change. So stay tuned. Okay, so the next few slides are related to a QAR that central office did on our projects. They asked for projects where we needed to have MOT for people walking and biking through that project. So maintenance of traffic, I know is traffic, talking about vehicles, but we also need to provide MOT for people that are walking and biking. The three main things that they found were lack of sufficient detail in the TTCPs. And I'll say before I go through all of these, I feel like this is kind of a shared effort. So yes, in design, we need to give the contractor the best information that we can so that the contractor and the CEI can then implement this through that project. So second was non-compliant push button orientation. So basically the push button is on the wrong part of the pole. And then the detectable warning. So like if you come up to a curb cut, properly placing telling the contractor where to place it, but then also the contractor properly placing it. So this is just from the FDM saying that we do need to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists. Some situations may be simple, but some may not be. Maybe it's a phased construction. And that's where my ask is that the EORs are working with their project manager to really look at this and understand what we need to be doing. We are going to be putting together like more of a training on this and things that we have found. So today is really just super high level, making you aware that this happened. We don't have the final QAR yet, but we have seen a draft. And what we were also told from central office is that we're not alone. We're not the only district that is that they're seeing these things on, but I'm glad that they brought it to our attention so that we can address them. Next. Okay, so this first one is an example of a traffic control plan that basically doesn't accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists at all. Just kind of left it up to the contractor to figure it out. We probably needed to provide some detail in these plans. Next. This is an example of a plan set that did show, hey, we need to get people walking and biking through this corridor as well. This is how you're going to phase through that project. Next. So this is just some examples of good MOT in the field. Now, what I don't know is if they had designs to go from, and this is how they got there, or if the contractor did this on their own accord, but that's the kind of stuff that we want to see. This is what we don't want to see. Again, I don't know if the designer had a wall there or not, but these are the types of things that, they can't even get to that button. Okay, so the second thing was the orientation of that push button. It's really hard to see here, but apparently we're telling the contractor where to put that push button and it's not in the right location. The next. This is the standard that tells you where to put that button. So basically, if I want to walk in this direction, then I'm going to push a button right here because that's the direction that I want to go. So again, we're going to be doing training with design, but also construction and CEI about this as well. Next. So in this example, they did put the push button on the right side of the pole. Next. Okay, the detectable warning surface. So that detectable warning surface should be the entire length of that curb cut. In this picture, the EOR had a gap there in the middle, and I think it was because you had two crosswalks kind of going like this, but in that center portion, there wasn't a raised median or anything like that. It was that person that is visually impaired would not know where they were headed in that area. Next. So you can see here, it goes across the entire length. Next. So this is what we would have preferred to have seen, that it was across the entire. Okay, so the Central Florida Safety Summit, anybody in here attend a few weeks ago? Okay, very, very good. Thank you for being there. It was a great event. It was our second annual Central Florida Safety Summit. We had over 250 people attend at the Daytona International Speedway, representing over 70 different agencies, organizations. And I share that because we have really created this momentum in Central Florida that we're in this together. Like, if we're working together to get to zero, we're going to be more successful than if we're off just kind of doing our own thing. Next slide. So the next three slides are just thank you to the companies that were able to attend and support the event. Next. And next. Okay, very good. So now on to what we can do to support safety in our daily lives. I really do encourage everybody, please wear your seatbelt every single time. 40% of our fatalities last year, they were not properly restrained. And their chances of survival would have been much, much higher. And it's a very simple thing to do. You wear your helmet every time, go the speed limit. Encourage your family to do the same. I was talking with a fire chief a week or so ago, and he was telling me that his daughters encourage their mom to put down her phone, to go the speed limit, that type of thing. And so he was really proud of them for kind of speaking up and being like, Mom, I care about you and I care about myself. So let's do the right thing. So sometimes those conversations can be difficult, but they're definitely worthwhile. Next. So I'd like to end my presentations with a safety second because it takes just a second to be safe. This past weekend did start the 100 deadly days of summer. A lot of teenagers, they're out for summer break. They're out having fun with their friends. So please, looking across the room, imagine there's probably a few of you that have teenagers that may be in a car with a friend. Maybe they've got a car. Please encourage them to do the right thing because you want them to come home, that you care about them. So please have a safe summer. Very good. Thank you.
Right. And we have one more quick item before the break. We have Jennifer Link and Diana Turner with our contract management group. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Sorry, guys, I had to take the long way. I'm quite clumsy and I could have made it quite memorable and slid across the stage, but we won't do that today.
The down. Okay.
You got it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. If you don't know, I'm Jennifer Link with Consultant Project Manager. I have to stand in front of the mic. Okay. I'm Jennifer Link. I work in Consultant Project Management. I am the contract supervisor for that group. I'm going to introduce my staff if you guys don't know them. This is Diana Turner. And then in the audience, I have Jessica Palmer and Brenda Oftenkamp. And Kristen Cooney is at EOC training today. So with that, what worked? So my group now manages all the contracts for consultant project management, for PLEMO, for lighting, environmental, contamination, traffic ops, ITS, and the public engagement contracts. And so with all of those contracts, we are trying to develop consistency. And so my group, the contract managers, as well as procurement, have been seeing a lot of things that we just want to go over, just some friendly reminders about how to maintain your contracts and with negotiations.
So this one, guys, quite simple. Deadlines. Please just try to meet them. So again, we're going to make sure as contract manager, we do send reminders out probably a few months in advance. So we do try to stay on top of that to make sure that you guys are informed and make sure that you get everything on time. So just meeting dates and times, document due dates, lockdowns. And if you have any questions or you may not meet that deadline, just reach out to us and we can work with you. But again, just self-explanatory, just try to meet those deadlines if we send those reminders out. Next slide.
All right, so QA/QC. So we are going to ask you guys to please start verifying all the information that you send to us. Check your formulas, check your project information, make sure you're sending us the fee sheet for the correct project. Ensure that your packages are complete. We send you a list of all the items that we need from you, so make sure that you send all of those. This is an example of a survey distribution sheet and a geotech distribution sheet. A lot of you guys seem to not know what those are, so please make sure you're including those in your packages. Make sure you use the most current forms and the most current scopes. And confirm with your subs that you are using the most current negotiated rates that they negotiated with procurement.
All right, so these next two slides are just a couple of examples of some common document errors that we see. So it's usually small errors that are in the details. So just pay attention to your documents, look at the details. To be honest, that's where we're seeing most of these common errors, just tiny little things. Look at your rates, look at your forms. Just verify that everything is accurate before submitting it over to us, and that way we can have a clean product. And this is just another example. Again, if you look at the arrows, it's just showing that the fee sheet is not properly identified, so we wouldn't know who it belongs to as far as the subs. So again, just pay attention to those details for us. Slide.
And contract maintenance and ownership. Know what your project budget is. Know when your contract expires and know when your project expires. Sometimes those dates are different if you have a task work order contract. Invoicing. You guys need to stay up to date on your invoicing. Please make sure you remember the invoicing process. You send it to your PM. Once the PM has approved it, then you're going to send it to the contract managers and we're going to approve it in SITs for you. Please make sure that you are following those guidelines because we will reject them. And communication. If there's a problem, please reach out to me, reach out to my team. We are there to help you. And with that being said, this is just a few examples of, so recently the district started asking us to recover funds off of old contracts, off of projects that are completed. If I reach out to you or one of the people on my team reach out to you, you should be able to tell me how much money you have on your contract and how much money you need to give back. This is an example of a task work order contract. This person knows exactly to the dollar what he can give back to the DOT. You guys should be able to tell us that as well. This is one of our larger contracts. They also know to the dollar what their contract is, what they're going to bill out, and what I'm going to recover. This is important because PMs move. If you guys move to a new firm, the person coming in behind you should be able to look at this and know. Same with you. If you go to a new firm, you should be able to look at what they've had. So any kind of document like this would be great for you guys to have.
So these are just some best practices for negotiations when you are preparing for negotiations. Field reviews are done years in advance, so you just want to make sure that you are informed on what your project actually is. Scope clarification meetings, if needed, you can reach out to your contract manager. If there's any questions that you have or you're unsure about something, just reach out to us and we can make sure that we make that meeting happen beforehand. Again, document questions, any clarifications, anything that you're unsure about, that's why we're here. Each of you should have a contract manager assigned, so if you have any issues or concerns, you can always reach out to us. Review your scope. You want to make sure that when you are getting ready to come to negotiations that you have reviewed your scope. You know what's going on and you're prepared for any questions or concerns. Send an invite to the correct staff. We are seeing that. There are a lot of common names. You want to make sure that when you are including people on these invites that you do have the team that you need and the appropriate people. So just please double check that. And come prepared and ready to talk. The last bullet that says comments, comments, comments just means the more comments, the better. When you're filling out those staff hour negotiations forms, put those comments in there. The more the better. And that way our advisors are also prepared when we come to the table for negotiations. Next slide.
And just remember that negotiations are negotiations. We are all there in the same meeting. You guys, we do want mutual gains on both sides. We would like the consultants to make money, but we also want to be good stewards of the state. So please remember that it's just a negotiation. You guys are able to talk to each other. That goes for the DOT staff and the consultant staff. Just talk. If you don't understand something, you don't know why they want the hours, just ask. Just have a conversation with them. We always want to get to a fair and reasonable fee. So that is the contract manager's goal, to make sure that the negotiations go smooth and that everybody is happy in the end result. And if there's something that concerns you and you don't feel like it was covered in the meeting, escalate it. Ask me, go to Catalina, go to Michelle, just reach out to somebody and get your answer. And then following the negotiations, the primes are responsible for the project. You are responsible for the project and all of your subs. All the work they do is in your hands. Communication is key. Make sure you stay in communication with your PM and with us regarding all items. If you, during design, find any items that add value to the project, please reach out to the PMs and let them know. They can go to Catalina and vet it. If we have the money, we will try to implement it. But please make sure you do that. And then provide feedback. Again, reach out to me if negotiations went well or didn't go well. Please reach out to us and let us know how it went.
Guys, and that's the end of our presentation for contract management. I was going to sing this slide, but my boss said I couldn't. So just keep in mind that we're all in this together. Thank you, guys.
Are there any questions? They don't have any questions. They don't want me to yell at them.
All right, thank you. And with that, we're going to take about a 15-minute networking break, and we'll be right back. Thank you. All right, we're about to be getting started. If you'd find your seats again. Please make it to your seat. We're going to start with our next presentation. Right. Thank you. Make it to your seats. We're going to move on to our next presentation. All right, next we have Ahmed Mohammed, our district traffic engineer, to speak about lighting conductors.
Morning, everyone. All right. I'm going to be diving today a little bit technical. So it's going to be regarding not the lighting, it's like regarding the electrical wires or the electrical conductors. So this is basically a continuation of what David mentioned about best practice and quality too. I've been testing this is for 2 or 3 lighting project in-house projects. One of them was a big interchange along I-75 and another one in I-95. And we have been very successful on this. I just want to make sure this is a disclaimer. This is not DOT requirements, not DOT preference, not DOT requested or anything. It's just a best practice that we did in-house and we were sharing with you for this our experience with this project. As you know, lighting, and this is not just a lighting, is lighting and ITS too, because lighting is require electrical conductors and also ITS require electric conductors. I know Tyler gave me only 20 minutes, so I'm going to be going quickly and presenting all of this as quickly as much as I can. My presentation is going to have 2 parts. Part 1 is going to be looking at the approach, the challenges and the approach. And my second part is going to be a demonstration on ORD on how to get the calculation or automated the calculation for the electrical wire inside the conduits and the pole boxes. We understand basically in lighting, EQR can provide all the quantities for all lighting components except for conductors. It's not automated. It's basically a manual process that is all the designers and the URs going there and putting the lengths at each conduit and then each pole box. And then if they change or extend the conduits or moving the pole boxes, now they have to go back again and do it. This is manual, which is really, it's not an efficient, it's not an accurate, sometimes it's inaccurate, okay, if they enter the wrong number. So what we are going to be presenting today is an approach that we can automate the conductor length and then run the EQ report to get this information. My understanding, central office, CAD office and central office, they have been working with Bentley and providing an approach to this could be whatever I'm presenting today could be a temporary until central office comes with a solution for it. We understand that is we have conductors, different sizes. We have some of them are small sizes, number 6 and number 8, and then we have a bigger than that, which is a 4 and 2. So selecting the sizes for the conductors is based on voltage drop calculation. So the first thing we're doing when we're doing a lighting or the ITS, we do a voltage drop because the voltage drop is going to be indicating what size of each of the circuits that we have. So in terms of the conductors, however, understand this is any circuit has 3 conductors. For lighting, for example, we have 2 hearts and 1 ground. So every circuit has 3 wires. However, when we comes in sharing circuits inside the conduits, okay, we only have 1 ground So we ending up with 5 conductors. If we have a 2 circuits, we're ending up with a 5 conductors rather than 6 conductors. So we eliminate the one of the conductors versus one of the ground wire for the other circuits. And when we have 3 circuits sharing the same conduits, again, we're going with a 7. So it's always an odd number. Also, when it comes to pull boxes, we have the pull boxes per BOE, the BOE indicating this is anytime you're entering a pull box, okay, and or exiting, you need to provide a slack of 8 feet for each conductor that you have. All right. So if you have a one circuit has a 3 conductors, for example, you should have a 24 slacks. Okay. So 3 multiplied by 8, 24 entering and 24 leaving. Okay, which is a 48. So that's basically the requirements for pull boxes. So we looked at this and say, okay, let's think about it, how to come up with a methodology or an approach to have a one approach that have the conduits and the pull boxes and basically measuring what is the slacks or what is the length of the conductors inside the conduits and the pull boxes. So we separated basically the conductors either to be in the pull boxes or a pole, a light pole, which is basically considered to be a cell. And then in a conduit, it should be a linear. So it depends on how long or what the length of the conduit, the conductor should be inside there. All right. So in this way, we can come up to 2 really equations. The first equation is for the cell, which is for any circuit, you have 2, okay, multiplied by 16, which is 8 and 8, entering and exiting, okay. So this is for the 2 hot wire, and then you adding to this is a 1 ground wire, all right? And then it comes to the concept of the number of circuit multiplier. I'm gonna talk about this is in the next slide about this number of circuit multiplier. The number of circuit multiplier is the value that we need to enter to adjust for how many circuits entering and exiting, because we have multiple options. We could have a splitting, we could have ending of the circuits, we could have different circuits inside the same conduit or inside the pull box. So this is basically the value that we need to input. This is what we're going to be looking for with a different configuration or the different option that we have. And then for the conduits is basically 2, which is the 2 hot wires multiplied by the conduit length plus 1 conduit length, which is basically your ground wire, because we said always there is a 1 ground wire. And then you have also the number of circuit multiplier, all right, as a part of that too. And then we build an expression builder in the attached pay item, which is you see here and down there. This is basically a conditional expression indicating this is, if this is a cell, do this. If this is a conduit, do this. All right, this is in the pay item, the attached pay item. So let's talk about the first one, which is when we have a conduit. So we have the first option when we have a conduit is basically all the circuits, either 1 or 5 or 6 inside the conduit, the same size. In this case, we put the number as our multiplier is the number of circuits, not the number of wires, but the number of circuits. So if I have 1, put 1. If I have 3, I put 3. If they are the same size. All right. Now, when it comes to a conduit that's sharing one large circuit, one large conductor size circuit, and the other one is a smaller one, now it comes to the issue, this is the ground wire should be on the largest size of your circuit, all right? So if I'm using now number 6 for one circuit and number 2 for another circuit and sharing the same conduit or the pull box, my ground wire should be with the largest one, which is number 2, all right? And in this case, we're going to have these two conditions. For the smaller size wires, we're going to be using a 0.5 as a multiplier for the first circuit only. Any additional circuits after this we're going to be added to that. So if we have two small circuits, we're going to be using 1.5. If it's a 3, we're going to be using 1.5. And then for the larger size, we're just going to use the number of the large size, all right, circuits. So if I have one large size, I'm just going to be using 1. If I have 2, I'm going to be using 2. All right, so this is giving me the multiplier, which is going to be an input. Again, is going to be an input in ORD to use that. And I'm going to explain this is when it comes to the demonstration. Now, when it comes to a pull box, the pull boxes has 3 types of pull boxes. The simplest one, which is the one that we are using more, is basically when we have continuous run, which is basically the circuit is entering and exiting. So the number, there is a 1 entering and 1 exiting, all right? And in this case, for same conductor size, we're using the actual circuits. But again, when we're coming to similar to the one we have with the conduits, we're using a 0.5 for the first one and a smaller one. And then for the larger size, we're using the number of circuits basically for the larger side. When it comes to splitting conductors, so basically I'm coming to a pull box, I have number 2, okay, entering, and then there's 2 exits. So number 2 is a splicing there, and then is going to serve an equipment or a light pole in one direction, and then moving to the other direction. In this case, we use a 0.75 for each split that we have, okay? And then plus the number of circuits that you have for each one of these. Then when it comes to end, begin and end, you use a multiplier of 0.25 because the 0.25 is giving you the 24 that you're looking for. So basically that is the multiplier numbers that you need. For light pole, because we only have a 24 per BOE, so we're using always 0.5 for the multiplier. So this is giving me all the multipliers that I have, okay, for different basically different configuration, okay? So for this is, I know that is, it's a little bit confusing. For this is, I created a spreadsheet that can be used for that. And I'm gonna be demonstrating now the spreadsheet that I just talked to you about. Right. This is spreadsheet showing, basically it has 3 parts. The first one is a conduit. The second one is pull boxes. And the third one is a light pole, which we said is always 0.25, so we don't have to do this. This spreadsheet is giving you what multipliers that you're going to be looking for, and also is testing for the lengths that you're looking for. For example, if I have a conduit that is have like a 2 or 3 number 6 circuits entering in a conduit is giving me 2. So if I have a 100 feet, for example, of conduit is going to give me 500, which is a 5 wires. All right. Now, if I have for this is another one for the larger size sharing the same conduit, so I'm going to be putting 1 here. What's going to end up is going to be creating 1 here and then putting 0.5 for the first one. So if I have a 100 feet conduit, it's going to give me a 300 of the large size, which is 1 ground and 2 hots. And then for the 2 other circuits, it's going to give me a 400, which is basically my 2 hots for the first circuit and 2 hot for the other circuit. All right, so that's basically for conduits. For pull boxes too, I can just look at if I have a 2, for example, circuits number 8, basically for number 8 or number 6. And then if it's continuous run, it's going to give me a 2 multiplier, and it's going to give me an 80 here, which is a 40 entering and 40 exiting. 5 wires enters and 5 wires exiting. I can also change this is to see if it's going to be an end. So if I'm going with a begin and end, all right, it's going to give me how many this is going to be ending. If I'm ending one of them and leaving the other one, it's giving me a 64. If I'm ending both of them, it's going to give me a 40. All right. So that's basically a 5 wires that's going to go there. All right. So this is a multiplier. Now, if I have another one, for example, a larger size is going to go again for the larger size and recalculating this is and giving me a 0.75 and 48 and 40. So it's going to give you whatever combination that you have of multiple circles inside or splitting. You can change this to split, and it's going to give you how many splits that you're looking for. If I have a one split, it's going to give you this multiplier. So this Excel sheet is going to give you for each one, if you are doing your circuits and basically doing your circuits and having splitting or ending at the end or so on. Now I'm going to go back again to my ORD and look at this. This is a sample of one project, basically a piece of the sample of one project. And I have a lighting here that is going there, and they have a conduits that is basically connecting the lighting, okay, at every location. So you have a light pole here, for example, and you have the conduit. This is considered to be an end. Pull box, this is the conduits. And you can click here of the conduit, and you're going to be seeing it does not have any attachment of any wires there. So to do this is, I'm having here, I'm going to go to attach item. And here is the thing, when you go and attach item and you need to put an attach item, if you go and do click on this is here, it's going to be opening you a window that you can basically import a library. So you go there and look at the library and import this library, and this library is going to be importing a DGN file. All right, I have a one template file here that has all of this is, so I'm going to be using this template here and say open. It's going to be asking me if you need to overwrite whatever you have. I'm going to be skipping this is because all what I need is my conductors that I created in the template file. So I'm going to be skipping all of these. All right, and you can see now I importing from the template my lighting electrical service and my lighting conductors. And here is my lighting conductors types. And all of this has the expression that I have. So now I can use any of these now to attach it to my conductors, or to my conduits or pull boxes. All right. So again, if you do it once, you don't have to have this template file anymore, because you can take it from another project and another project and another project and so on by importing from the design file from another project. And then when you're doing this, you're going to be going here now, and then you're starting basically attach the item to this conduit that I'm taking here, and you're going to be selecting the lighting conduit. This is, for example, it's a one, if I'm zooming in here, this is an A3 number 4. So I'm going to be going to number 4 here, and this is an attach this is here, and then click on this is. And then you're going to be seeing here is the pay item and attached to it. And here is the multiplier that I mentioned to you. So if I have a one circuit, I'm just going to be putting the multiplier here to be a 1. And now you can see here, this is a 580 feet. The conduit itself is, the length of the conduits is a 193, but there is a 580 feet of wires for number 2 inside it. All right. I can do the same thing for this one here. I'm just going to give you a sample of this one here. So this is, for example, I have 2 number 4, 2 number 6, and another 2 number 6. So I have 3 circuits there. One of them is a large size. 2 of them is a smaller size. So if I'm going to here to my Excel sheet, I have 1 large and 2 small. So I'm going to go here. Basically, that's what I have. So I have a multiplier 1 for the large size and 1.5 for the smaller size. So I'm going to go here to my attached again. I'm going to be attaching an item here. So this one here. I'm going to be selecting my conduit and attach item. And then I'm going to be selecting again number 4 now. And I'm going to be also getting the smaller one, which is 8 to 6, which is the other pay item. And then hit OK. So now I'm going to have 2 of them in the property. One is 8 to 6, which is multiplier should be 1.5. And here multiplier should be 1. All right, for basically the conduits. All right. The other thing is pull boxes. I can go here, say I'm going to go to this split pull box here, and I click on this and also I can attach the item to that pull box, okay, and say this is going to be an attachment for basically there is a split one, okay, which is A3 is coming here, 8, and then 2, 8, 3, 2 large ones. So I have 1 second large one, 1 second is a small one coming to here, and the large one is splitting here. So I'm going to go to my Excel sheet and saying, okay, I have 1 small one, and this is actually, I don't have any small ones, right? I have only 2 large ones. One is continue and 1. So I'm going to go to 2 here. I'm just going to be deleting that and deleting that. 1 is going to be a split and 1 is going to be continue. So I'm going to be putting 1 here. So now it becomes my 2.75 at this as 1. So 1 is a splitting and 1 is continue. All right, so I got 2.75. So I'm going to go here and attach number 4 to this. So I'm going to be going to attach item to this one here. And I'm going to be taking out the 6.8. I'm going to be using only the 4.2. And then changing my multiplier here to be 2.75. All right, so I'll do this is for everyone. And now I have all my conduits and my pull boxes. For the time seeing, I'm not going to be going with each one of these. I can go also to my pole and attach to it the number 4 and 2, and then hit OK here. And then it change this as pole to be, because it's an ending one, I'm going to be putting 0.25, which is a 324, basically 3 wires, each one is 8. All right, so this is basically how I'm going to go over, and it's always attached to it. So you can look at what is going to be in each one of this is, what is going to be my conductors inside there. All right. So this is, you can test yourself or somebody doing a QAQC for it and looking at it. Now, the point is, after we're doing all of this is, how we're going to be creating the EQR from that. So I'm going to be opening another file that is basically, it's the same file, but I attach everything to it. So this is now, I have attached for every one of this is my conductors. And then I'm going to be going to DOT and EQ report. I'm going to be selecting lighting. Changing. I'm doing compute. All right, so now you're going to be seeing conductors as a part. You can see here, conductors as a part of this is, which is all my length has been added to this design notes. And you can see here, this is zeros. This is what's the original one that we have when we're not using this method, which is basically, this is the EQ report coming from this is, but this is the actual numbers. This is the right numbers. So all what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be selecting this is, going to my data, here. And then do a text to column. So now becomes a numbers. Next, next, finish. And then I cut this as Control X and I paste it there. And then I can sum for this conductor and sum for this conductor. All right. So now I can get an accurate information. You can see here at this pole box, for example, because it's the same, it's a 24. Here is the conduits, here is another 24 or 32, okay, 40. So these are pole boxes, these are conduits, all right? So that's basically what is the process. And you can do this. And now if I need to go back again and change in the design, for example, if I need to extend or basically change the location for this light pole, for example, and I need, you see here, for example, this is a 200 feet and it has number 2 or 600 feet, which is have a 3 wires. If I need and go, this is, and it change, for example, change the location or basically doing some kind of modification to this is and make it to the smaller one. Now this is, you see, it becomes now the length for it is going to be 87, and then the calculation for it becomes now 261, which is basically updated it. All right. So now you go back again and you do your QA, okay, and getting updated information. All right. So this is basically the best practice that we are using an in-house project for an interchange. We had like 30 or 40, 300 sometimes poles. We have an I-95 project that we have like 200 or 300 pole. Okay, and we use this method to go over the conductors, and you just can do it once. Again, if you do it once, you save the file. If you want to go on another file and another project, all what you need to do is you're going to the attach to the basically the attach reference here. Get rid of this is. You go here to tools, attach, sorry, to utility attach item, and then you go to your 3 dots, all right, and then the library, and then import. You don't have to use a template anymore. You use an old project DGN file that has this. So it's only the template is a one-time use, okay? And every project afterwards is gonna have all of this information. And the information also include the pool distribution. So if you look at this, is I added also the transformer, pay items, the pool distribution cables for conventional lighting, for high mast, and all of these pay items is already in this template file that you can use. All right. So that's basically what it is. And the same thing can happen in ITS too, because ITS, they supposed to provide also the conduits and the conduit lengths, the wires, the conductors, and the length for the conductors, for the equipment, and for the connection to the cabinets. Okay. I know Signals we don't, but for ITS, we're doing the same thing too. All right. I think I'm done and I'm open for any questions. If you need this file, I'm going to send me an email and I'm going to be more than happy to send you the DGN file and the Excel sheet. Okay. Got a question? Okay. All right. Just send me an email. Okay. And I will attach it both to, I already shared it with another consultant, but I can send it back to you. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you, guys. I'm gonna leave it to Wade.
Thank you, Wyman. All right. Now next we have Wade McLemore from our Orlando Construction Group to talk about raised crosswalks.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it. Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I've seen a few familiar faces out there, but if I haven't met you yet, my name is Wade McLemore. As Tyler said, I work for FDOT in Orlando Construction as a construction project administrator and construction project manager. Just out of curiosity, who here has been involved with the design of a raised crosswalk? More than I thought. Okay. Hopefully this will be helpful and some value to you. Basically, my hope here today is kind of go through some experiences that we've had at the resident level as far as just issues we've come across, concerns we've come across, and different solutions that we've implemented, and then basically wrapping it up with kind of the outcome of how those solutions impacted the overall project. Well, I have worked on, like I said, being in Orlando construction, highly urbanized area. We've had a number of raised crosswalks that we've installed throughout our roadways. I've been involved as either a PA or a PM in 4 different projects. Total of 14 raised crosswalks that we have installed. One of those projects that Laureen mentioned earlier was on Orange Blossom Trail, probably one of the most high profile and successful projects that we've had with raised crosswalks, which is just a little bit south of I-4 from Holden all the way up to, just south of I-4. Another project is Washington Street from OBT to Huey, and then Cimarron Curry Ford, we installed a raised crosswalk, and then most recently on Orange Avenue from Clay to Orlando Avenue. These raised crosswalks have been impactful in enhancing mobility and improving pedestrian safety as we've come to experience. So I'm going to get started here with just some really more information, just to kind of let you know what we've experienced in construction. These channel curb grates have been a bit of a challenge. The 2 issues that you've seen up here that we've come across is, well, not so much this issue as just, and we've got a developmental spec out there and it's changing. But something to keep in mind as you're reviewing shop drawings and whatnot is just the ADA compliance when it comes to these grates. You want the grates to be perpendicular to the direction that you cross the grates. Don't want any, wheelchair wheels getting stuck between the groove of the grates. They need to be at least, they need to be no more than 1/4 inch wide to avoid that kind of thing. Just kind of for your information, I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. The other requirements of for the grates, according to the developmental spec, is the slip resistance. That is the requirements. We had a few challenges with material passing those requirements on one of our projects. Our contractor's manufacturer submitted 3 different samples to State Materials Office. the first passed the dry slip coefficient test, but not the wet. So he resubmitted the material, but they coated it, which isn't allowed. So ultimately that was rejected. They finally got it right. But then when it came down to, you know, being able to manufacture it at that point in time, which was a couple years ago, there were procurement issues. It took 12 weeks for that to be made. So that's kind of ultimately why I wanted to bring that up here, just to, I think it might be helpful to know here in the room, just sometimes the long lead time that some of these materials might have for procurement. So I personally I've had great experiences with just turnaround to shop drawings and that kind of thing. But I mean, ultimately, on the example that I'm giving you, it was one of the last things that we did was installing the grates on the project. So, you know, one of our performance measures is finishing within allowable contract time. So that was important for us to get that within allowable contract time to meet that measure there. All right, now kind of getting into the kind of heart of the presentation here. One of the projects, which was the most recent that I had been involved with regarding a raised crosswalk, was on Orange Avenue. From Clay Street all the way up to 1792 or South Orlando Avenue. It was situation where we were doing a road diet. So we had 4 lanes going to 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. And just a little north of Clay Avenue, they installed the raised crosswalks to give a place for pedestrians to cross. Speeding was a issue in this corridor. We experienced that in construction. A lot of times people, I mean, were flying down the road there. So something like this was needed, and we did need to have a better place for pedestrians to cross. So the kind of the layout was that there's northbound, southbound, and then a pedestrian island in the middle. The contractor paid the northbound side, paid the southbound side, built per plan. They the slopes of the ramps were correct. Everything was built the way that they should. This here is a kind of a look at what some issues that we had with the I don't know if you can really see it there, but there's a blue arrow there, and the asphalt's torn up just about like 8 feet or so beyond where the return ramp is. So that was an issue, and we were getting a lot of calls from folks that they were damaging their vehicles, bottoming out, and that kind of thing. So Winter Park was the local agency here. They got a lot of calls. We got a lot of calls. We knew speeding was definitely a factor, and for the first month or two, we're like, yeah, let's just slow down, folks, but we continue to still experience that issue. Here's a look at the northbound side. So again, built per plan, built to spec. In the requirement was a 1 to 12 slope, and a lot of times really on both sides here, they were doing better than that. It was more like a 1 to 20 slope. But we met out with in the field after we got a lot of complaints about it and damaging the asphalt. Like, well, let's all go out there and put some boots on the ground, get some eyes on it, and see what's going on. So we met the contractor, the sub, local agency, and we just observed what was going on there. And if you can tell where that car is, that's the southbound side. Right here is the northbound side. We noticed that the southbound side was not paved in one lift. And that created, I'm gonna go up. That created a kind of a low point here. Where that joint is. There's actually a joint there. There's not a joint on the northbound side. So cars were, bottoming out, scraping the asphalt up, tearing up their undercarriages. So the solution that we decided on was to have them go back, mill out 1/2 inch to 1 inch. It was kind of just to kind of scar up the southbound side and repave it all in one lift, 50 feet on each side. So they did that, and it was very well received. I'm not kidding. Like within an hour, we'd had the news did a segment on it. Trooper Steve was out there. He did a segment on it. Within an hour of us repaving that, they were out there, and it was a positive. It was positive coverage though. So there's certainly with a speed hump, a raised crosswalk, we need to have some driver awareness there, right? Like we need to know that there's a speed bump there when you're driving it, but it also needs to be drivable. So we learned from this is something can be built to plan, but not necessarily have the same like user experience, the same drivability, if you will. So like there's a balance there. Our takeaway from that was that it's the contractors' means and methods on how they're going to construct that, but moving forward, any raised crosswalks that come across to our office, we're going to, we think it's a best practice for them to pave all in one lift when it comes to these raised crosswalks. It is a lot better if they do. Some other challenges that we've had, I mean, these are new roadway features. So when you talk about raised crosswalks, diverging diamonds, roundabouts, things that people just aren't necessarily all that used to. I mean, I think people are used to speed humps in like neighborhoods, things like that, but not so much on state roads. So, we experienced the challenges of just a public relations perspective. Our PIO officers were great. I'm sorry, the community outreach coordinators were great and instrumental in communicating. But still, there's just challenges because it's a new experience for people who are driving. So again, I mentioned media inquiries and local agencies. They get phone calls and whatnot. So we don't want to surprise anyone. We don't want someone to go and wake up and have a new roadway feature like a raised crosswalk on their commute and surprise them by that. So just some things that we've done to help with that communication. Again, it's a very collaborative approach with PIO, with our office, with the local agencies. But some of the things that we've done is, I don't know if you all have heard of, like whenever we pave a road doing a pre-work meeting for asphalt, where we just go over asphalt specific things. But what we did is we took that same approach about 4 weeks prior to when the contractor was expected to install that raised crosswalk. We had a pre-work meeting for that raised crosswalk. We invited any shareholder that would have a say in or just need to know about what was going on there. In the case of Orange Avenue, that was, Winter Park, Orwin Manor, the community there, their HOA, the contractors. So, I mean, we all had a meeting, basically just laying out expectations that we didn't, surprise anybody when we installed the raised crosswalk. So, that was one of the things that we did. And another, sort of best practice that we've seen is that we've had some plans that have had PCMS boards that are dedicated to the installations of a raised crosswalk. Some have not, but we've always, kind of what we do in our office is if there's going to be a new raised crosswalk, we're going to have PCMS boards installed 14 days prior to installation. They're going to have a message that gives people heads up that, hey, this condition's coming. And then once that is built, we change the message that, hey, there's a new condition here. So that's just one of the things that we have done to just help communicate that to people, to not surprise them and give them as much communication and frequency. I think that's key too, is the frequency and the communication there. Not just doing one thing, but doing a bunch of different things to help communicate that. Then once the PCMS boards went away, we've been out in the field a lot, with this issue. And, one of the things that I would recommend and say is just, and I say this to myself of, making it a regular habit to get out, get boots on the ground, look at these projects from different perspectives. We were out walking the project and in the Orange Avenue example here, there's a lot of old oak trees there. And we were like 500 feet down the road and we're looking at the crosswalk and we're like, there's a lot of shadows out here. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of landscaping. While there was signage in place, you didn't really know it until you kind of got a little closer. So one of the things we did was install some road speed hump ahead signs, additional speed limit signs, and strategic locations where you're going to see that. You're going to see that long before you get to that raised crosswalk, because the beacon's are only going to flash if somebody's, crossing there. So that is certainly helpful when those beacons are flashing to know that it's there. But especially early on, that was something that, while people were getting used to that condition, we wanted to have more signage out there to let people know that that is a new condition out here. So I've kind of sprinkled in some overall kind of feedback recommendations and things like that. But from construction's perspective, I think the most important thing, the most beneficial thing is just details. The more details you can provide, the better. I just mentioned the PCMS boards. Some plans had dedicated PCMS boards. I think it's the best practice to have them on any new roadway feature, like a raised crosswalk, so that folks are aware. Phasing. I mean, given, I think it's the best practice to have raised crosswalks, especially raised intersection, all, installed in the same phase. So that means adjusting the traffic control plan accordingly, making sure that your pay items are, matching with what the raised crosswalk is needing. I mean, we need to overbuild. I think overbuild tables are very helpful as well. We've had some plans that have had overbuild tables, others that haven't. And just having the correct pay items assigned accordingly when it comes to that. I had one more slide. It was my outcome slide. So I'll just tell you. So the outcome here is, like I said, we've installed 14 raised crosswalks in the Orlando area. All 14 are still in use. They are, I forgot to mention this earlier. I think Maureen mentioned it. The OBT project, just south of I-4, that was one of the most deadliest corridors for pedestrian fatalities in the state. And we are achieving target zero. The raised crosswalks are a key component of that, among, a bunch of different efforts that are out there, like the fencing and whatnot, but the raised crosswalks are really helping. And as I drive these roads and see what's going on after we finish projects, I am noticing a change in driving behaviors. I notice, where people used to double the speed limit up on Orange Avenue, they're slowing down. These types of features are working, and I'm experiencing that just as I just drive the roads there. There's a bit of a learning curve, a couple months or so. It's a bit of a heartburn for folks. Or just kind of a learning experience for them. But once they get used to it, it's been very beneficial. And when I've been out in the field and folks are using the raised crosswalks, they're very thankful. They're very thankful that they're there and that they are seen. So it's something that's working, and we're achieving target zero with that. And it's bettering driving behaviors, and it's been a good thing that we've done here. So again, that's about it, but I hope this has been of some value to you to hear from construction's perspective when it comes to raised crosswalks. But I will go ahead, and if anybody has any questions that I can answer, I'll just open it up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the bike lane will essentially end before the raised crosswalk. So it's a shared, when you go over the raised crosswalk, there's not necessarily a bike lane there, if that makes sense. So it ends and then it continues on beyond the raised crosswalk. Has been our experience with it. Yeah. Yeah, so where the raised crosswalk is, and hopefully this answers your questions, Like on OBT, it was real successful with this. They just did it. They did a 1/2 inch mill where the raised crosswalk was, and then they did 2-inch lifts to do that. So I've seen them out there. They're using hand tools, to compact those ramps, those areas, and so that's kind of how they've constructed that. Had another question somewhere over here. Yeah. Mhm. That's a good question. It was not, it wasn't like the slopes weren't any different than when it was initially installed. The only difference was that just one top lift made a smoother transition between where the approach ramp and the return ramp connected to the rest of the asphalt. So it was the same slope. We were looking at, I mean, depending on where you take a smart level, it's like 6% out there. And it was like that before we had them redo it. Yeah. That's a good question. I wasn't out there for that. I can, if you want to connect with me afterwards, I can get you an answer to that. In the back. As long as it's needed. On Orange Avenue, just because we received a lot of feedback on it. We kept them up pretty much through the project. Like, I mean, for the next like couple months, like a month or two. All right. Well, thank you all again for your time this morning. I really appreciate it, and hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you. Oh, I didn't forget. I want to introduce Kelly Smith. Kelly Smith's with Planning and Environmental Management Administrator.
Hi, my name's Kelly Smith, and I am the Planning and Environmental Management Administrator, and I hate microphones. So are you clicking? Sorry. Attention grabber, because that's what we do in Plimo. So we had a safety competition, and Mark Trebitz is online, and I'm sure he's going to kill me later, but I just needed to give you some lightheartedness because Stephen Buck told me my presentation was boring. So, so next slide. So why am I here? And why should you listen? I know some of you've heard me speak about MPOs in the past, but I'm going to go over some of their documents. And the reason why you need to care about this is because we want your projects to go smoothly, and you can help with that. And some of that is just knowledge and awareness. So we have 27 MPOs statewide. We have 5 MPOs in the district. It's a federally mandated planning organization. And then there are state statutes that guide us on this. The MPO has representation from local governments, including elected officials. They have technical representatives and citizens that are a part of different committees. So again, why is this important to you? Because anytime you do you need to do an amendment to one of the MPO's documents, the project has to go before these committees that have these people, and we're reintroducing this project to them. So kind of related back to what Laureen was saying is that the awareness component of when you're doing your estimates and making sure with your project, it helps the project go smoother because it's not, those touch points won't be there. So next slide, please. So what are some of the things that the MPOs do? The major planning documents that they have are the long range transportation plan. So think about like your family's budget. It's a 20-year plan. It's thinking about the long range. This is where they do their cost feasible plan and their needs. And within that, if we amend it, there's a process to it, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Built off the long-range plan is their list of priority projects, and then built off of that is the TIP. That is their actual checkbook. That's what they're actually writing out, the projects for the 5-year work program. And then the state transportation improvement plan, or the STIP, is what we oversee, and it's our work program. And all projects must be consistent for FDOT to move forward with a phase. So this is where it gets really important, because as you're transitioning from PD&E to design to the right-of-way to construction, you need to make sure that these documents reflect the accurate estimates that you have. So next slide. These documents build off of each other. Each document has different criteria on how to amend it. And the amendment process is based on each of the MPO's public participation plans. We do not control this. This is why it's important, again, is that each MPO is different. Each MPO's public participation plan requires different touch points. And so we need to be cognizant of what's going on, so then that way we don't impact schedules. So next slide. So for the long-range transportation plans, all of the MPOs are processing their LRTPs right now, an update to them. They're working on their 2045 plans. Why is this important to you? Because the more accurate the estimates, those estimates feed into the long-range plan cost feasible plans, and then we can make sure that we're at least close, right? It helps control those amendments. I get some of the things are out of our control, changes to projects happen. That's why it's a project. But the awareness, again, is important. So for the LRTP amendment thresholds, there's a website here that I put on this slide, so you can go back to it because it's a little more complicated than what I'm going to say. But design concept or scope changes, adding a new project where phases are currently listed in the cost feasible plan, projects or project phase initiation date for project in the cost feasible is advancing, or there's a new phase. So the timing of these amendments can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months, because what they have to do is they have to basically go out to the public and say, hey, we're amending the plan. Are you okay with it? Then they have a public comment period, and then they go to their board to adopt. But if they don't meet 1 month, then you're pushing out the adoption. So it just depends on the MPO and their schedule and what that looks like. But again, it can take some time, and for like planning consistency purposes between each phase, we have to do a check-in with that. If it doesn't meet planning consistency, you can't go to that next phase. So next slide, please. And now for the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. So the TIP is a subset of the LRTP. The MPO is the responsible agency, and it's a living document, and it's updated annually by July 15th. So when we're asking for estimate updates before, we call it a snapshot. So work program basically takes a picture of what is in our work program around the March timeframe. In that March timeframe, if you have an accurate estimate, then we're not going to have to worry about any type of updates to your amendment or to the TIP. And for the TIP, we amend that first current year. So for the STIP is the easy one, because if we update the TIP, we're updating the STIP. They have to match, they have to be exact replicas of each other. And we are responsible as FDOT to make sure that this is updated. It's also a living document. It's updated annually at the same time as the MPO's TIP. And we do have to do modifications or amendments. So changes to the TIP and STIP. You'll hear us talk about the 2 million and 20%. If your project costs go up by 2 million and 20%, it requires an amendment, the addition of a project or a deletion of a project, and then also a major change in concept. So like changing the project termini by half a mile or 20%, or some major change if you had a DDI at an interchange and now you're doing it to a SPUI or something. A major change, it's also kind of reflective into that TIP amendment. And that's where the MPO liaisons don't know necessarily if you're changing your scope, but you communicate with us. That will help that communication to the MPO to initiate that TIP and STIP amendment. I had put on the slide a couple back of the MPO contacts. They're your friends. Call them. They're very friendly people. They'll help you out with it. You can call me if you have questions about what the parameters are for doing these amendments, or if you have questions. We've also worked with CPM a lot, so they're very familiar with what's required as well. So please reach out. For the TIP amendments and the STIP amendments, again, because of MPO board timing, it can go between 1 and 3 months. And so if you have an update to an estimate right before your letting, we might not make it. And that's going back to Director Strose's comments earlier with the performance measures. It's important for this to be, for y'all to be aware of. So for example, my favorite project, I-75 moving Florida forward. It was a new project, kind of fell out of the sky. We had to go to construction very, very quickly. We notified the MPO in November. Ocala's board, we had to skip over the committees because it had to go so fast. And they had a process in place, so we were able to go to them in November. And then thankfully, the Lake Sumter MPO also was able to go by December, but that was even pushing it. We had to pull a lot of favors. We don't like asking for favors because then when it's kind of a walk-on amendment or something like that, again, the board kind of asks questions. Thankfully, this project was very well wanted and received, and so we didn't get a lot of questions. This is the best case scenario, but it's an example to show the length of time that it took to get a project amended. And again, it can impact the schedule. So how does this impact us? Timing. Updates take time and coordination. The boards meet monthly, however, some are skipped. I would have their schedules, but every year they change them. So it's one of those things that if you have questions or concerns, reach out to us. The federal and state fiscal years. So the state of Florida, we start July 1st. The federal government starts October. During that time frame, it's kind of a no man's land. So we have to do special modifications to them. So we've worked with CPM to basically say, if you have a first quarter letting, you need to be pretty tight. And that's helped us out tremendously. We used to have all kinds of issues. But again, just communication, I can't express that enough. Some of the other things to consider are your estimate updates. If you have estimate updates, it's cumulative. So if you had a $500,000 estimate update, $1 million estimate update, and then you had another $1 million estimate update, you've triggered that amendment. And so what's happened in the past is it's like, oh, I only had $1 million update. Well, no, it's cumulative within the fiscal year. So awareness. Also, the project limits change and the project limits and the scope changes. We do that sometimes for political reasons or other reasons that are, again, outside of our control. But it's that communication to let people know, because a lot of times we don't see that. It is a collaborative process. We work with our MPOs really well, but one of the things in 2023, we had the most amendments in the state. We almost had 80 amendments, and that's a lot. That's 80 touch points to the committees and boards. I don't know if any of y'all have ever stood in front of a CAC. Has anybody? You kind of get chewed out over simple things in your project. It could be the best project in the world, but they will pick it apart. The technical committees, sometimes it's the same thing, and sometimes it's the same thing in the boards. But you don't want to have to do that if we can control it. The MPOs, when they adopt their tips, basically go through an adoption public process. And that's an opportunity for people to ask questions. And that's where we'd like to kind of be, because then it's the overall picture of what's going on in their MPO planning area, and they have less questions. Questions are a good thing, and it's good for us to communicate, but we want to have that strategic communication with the MPOs where it's on our terms and not necessarily forced, right? And so that being said, if you have questions and you want to process, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is somewhere. Not there. Sorry. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure if you Google, you'll be able to find me. Although I joke I'm in witness protection program because of my last name. If you do FDOT, you can find me. But I do want to introduce one of my teammates, Daisha Robertson. She's going to give you an update as well on some of your schedule busters of awareness and communication. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Morning, everybody. I'm Deja Robertson. I'm the district NEPA compliance specialist. And today I wanted to talk to you about some proposed schedule changes that we were hoping to implement to improve our reevaluation process. Before I jump into the actual changes, I wanted to just make sure we're all on the same page on what a reevaluation is. So it's really our opportunity to review the project in its current phase and compare its impacts to the impacts that were originally identified in the PD&E. Reevaluations are only required for major projects that were developed through the PD&E process. So when we're looking at reevaluations, we're looking for any major changes in design, such as right-of-way changes, alignment, typical section changes, or really anything else that's going to change the originally approved NEPA impacts. As a side note, in case anyone's unfamiliar with NEPA, that's really your cultural contamination, wetlands, species impacts. There's several other topics. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to go over that stuff with you. Reevaluations are required anytime there's a funding authorization. So anytime you move to your right-of-way phase, to your construction advertisement, we'll need to do a reevaluation. We also need to do reevaluation after construction advertisement if there's a major change. Some folks have said, hey, you know, we have a major change, but it's before construction advertisement. In that case, we can actually roll those in with a funding authorization and combine it into one reevaluation. But once we pass that construction advertisement, that's where we need the teams to communicate with us. Design build projects, please come talk to us. Design build projects are a little bit special, as we all know. And based on the process, the process will vary based on the type of project. So for reevaluations for those, please reach out to me. The goal of our proposed changes is really just to update the schedule to reflect the current process. We're here to support you guys. We want to make sure that the schedule reflects the responsibilities accurately. We want to make sure that the schedule activities and durations are shown in the schedule correctly. We're also updating the schedule dictionary. And best of all, we were able to make all of these modifications without extending your schedules. So the first activity we want to modify is the request environmental review. There's a lot of confusion about this activity in particular, just because it's often misunderstood to be environmental permitting. So we want to clarify that a bit and change the title to NEPA compliance review. The activity will occur subsequent to the initial plans review and prior to the final plans and model and the final right-of-way requirements and LOC to survey and mapping. Basically, this provides my group with just enough time to make sure that we can look at the project and its impacts prior to the footprint of the project being finalized. We need about 10 days to accomplish this review, and right now the current schedule shows a 7-week gap, so we have plenty of time to get that in. The next two activities that we're looking to modify are both called the environmental reevaluation. This causes a little confusion because it doesn't differentiate between the two activities. looks like one activity duplicated. So we're proposing to rename the activities NEPA reevaluation for right-of-way and NEPA reevaluation for construction advertisement. The schedule dictionary will be updated to reflect these changes as well. And both activities will take about 6 months to complete. The right-of-way reevaluation will occur subsequent to the final right-of-way requirements and LOC to S&M, but before the docs to right-of-way. And the reeval for construction advertisement is proposed to occur after the environmental permit application process, but before the production. The last change that we want to make to the schedule is in the plan's update schedule. We want to add a new activity called NEPA reevaluation for construction. Again, the duration is 6 months, and it will follow the review and update of the plans and model and update permit activities, but before the environmental certification complete and the production date activities. So these are really the changes to the schedule. So I wanted to go over the schedule dictionary modifications. And really, this is just a quick summary. And the main goals of these changes is really just to make sure that myself or one of my consultants is included in the key ERC reviews and the key meetings for the project. It modifies the names of the 3 activities and adds the 1 new activity. So we've looked at ways to move forward with how to implement this, and this is the plan we came up with. We broke it down into specific tasks and developed teams to help assist with the implementation. So we're looking to review and modify the schedule templates within the next 2 weeks. We're going to work with the schedule dictionary working group to update the schedule dictionary over the next 4 weeks. And we're starting to reach out to individual PMs to work on their individual project schedules. We think that will take about 8 weeks to accomplish. And then, of course, our long-term goal is to address those pesky design build projects and provide a long-term schedule for those. So now that I've had a chance to go over the proposed changes, does anyone have any questions? All right, awesome. So I'd like to introduce Jason Smith with SRD for the utilities and critical path.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right, so my name's Jason Smith, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm here on behalf of Stacy Nestor in the District Utility Office to talk a little bit about utilities and the critical path. Any questions? No, really, the goal for today really is to provide consultant EORs and project managers with some effective strategies to meeting your utility schedules and the requirements associated with that. We're going to walk through the utility critical path for a typical project, 3R type of project. We're going to highlight some of the common pitfalls that can delay your progress, and we're also going to share some proactive approaches to help you guys stay ahead of schedule. We'll figure this out. As consultant EORs and project managers, we do understand that the critical path of our FDOT project schedules has a major impact on the success and failure of the overall project. On most projects, with the exception of maintenance resurfacings, utilities eventually becomes part of that critical path. Some of the common bottlenecks, what are they? They start with the advanced utility notification. If you have utility work by highway contractor, reimbursements, FGT involvement, that's really important that we get an idea of what that is ahead of time at that advanced utility notification. Then there's the phase 2 utility contact. You want to have a lot of your SUE done prior to that. You want to have your ERC comments incorporated, particularly the ones that are related to your utilities, and make sure that your plans and utility conflict matrix are ready to go. And then utility work by highway contractor. That's a long process. And you want to make sure that if you do have utility work by highway contractor, that you're getting on top of that very, very early in the project. And then, of course, final documents for district utility office review and approval. That process is not a quick process. It's got to get reviewed by your UPM, by construction, and then it's got to go back for signature by the UAO. So we want to make sure, again, that you're staying on top of those elements. More and more often, district utility office is seeing projects late on their certifications. Ultimately, this can result in misleadings and problems during construction. And while the causes for this can vary, there are a few factors that are common between a lot of projects that contribute to these issues. Delayed start on scheduled activities, that's the most common issue that the district utility office is seeing. Oftentimes, there's a sequence of events that has to occur in order to meet the critical deadlines in your master schedule. A common misconception is that your utility coordinator is going to handle all those utility tasks and a last minute check-in with them right before, say, a utility contact is going to suffice. The reality is it's a team effort between the EOR and the UC. A good example of that is really in your phase 2 utility contact. In order for your utility coordinator to meet the schedule for that line item, first, you got to have the initial SUE completed for the project. Then the EOR has to update the plans with the critical comments from phase 2 that could impact utilities, and then update the conflict matrix. At that point, the UC needs to have time to prepare all the documents based on that updated information. That package then gets submitted to the FDOT utility project manager to do a week-long review of those documents. Following that review, the package has to go back to the EOR and the UC to incorporate those comments. And finally, once all those comments are addressed, the package is ready for utility contact. But if you wait until a few days before that scheduled item to work with your utility coordinator to start that process, you're really already weeks behind before you've started that utility coordination process. Another element is early identification of the critical utilities and their design impacts on your projects. Not all utility impacts are equal. Adjusting a couple feet of a 2-inch telephone cable requires a lot less time and effort when you compare it to, say, a 3-mile, 30-inch sanitary force main relocation. And we have to plan for that time. Power poles, especially if you're dealing with transmission poles, they have long lead times. A lot of times they require multiple pole relocations. They might have issues surrounding de-energizing. It's not always feasible for as EORs to design an entire project, identify every utility conflict at phase 1, but you can identify the key utility owners early and assess the impacts at those critical locations. Once those key players and the key design elements are identified, then the EOR can work to design around those known constraints and then initiate the coordination where we can't. The EOR should coordinate with the UC to determine which UAOs are going to require that early coordination. For instance, if you're going to facilitate a potential utility work by highway contractor agreement, we kind of have an idea of which utilities are most likely to enter one. So if you have those, we can kind of get ahead of it. If there's a UAO that needs time for procurement of materials or design, we want to make time for that. If they've got reimbursement, easements, if there's FGT involvement. Knowing this information early really helps the EOR make informed decisions, which is going to result in higher quality products ahead of that phase 2 submittal. And that's going to mean less changes and quicker turnaround times for all the documents. Another thing is to schedule your SUE early. Coordinate early with the department if you need approval on, say, mast arms, drainage structures, or any other large critical foundations. It's going to allow the EOR time to include those VVHs before you get to your initial plan submittal. You don't need to do all of your VVHs prior to your phase 2 submittal. Some are going to be inevitable. For example, if you have smaller foundations like pedestrian poles, they're obviously going to be more subject to relocation due to comments in the ERC. Maybe there's a utility that's in the way, and you can make a small adjustment. Completing those critical ones prior to phase 2, though, is going to make it easier to schedule your SUE team for later minor changes due to ERC comments or due to coordination with those utilities. It also leaves time for you to incorporate it into your utility contact plan set. Focusing in again on that SUE, another issue is that projects are often approaching that phase 2 utility contact without your critical SUE completed. It's very difficult for the UAOs really to provide accurate marked plans or UWSs if they don't have designate and good locate information on the project. Without it, a lot of times as the EOR or project manager, you're going to go into that phase 2 utility design meeting and walk out with really no progress being made because your utilities are really seeing their conflicts for the first time at the meeting, which is going to further eat into your project schedules. So also keep in mind your SU team, they're managing multiple projects and scheduling is often going to book out weeks in advance. So and the SU team also has to wait at least 2 full business days after completing their 811 ticket before they can get out there and start digging, even if they don't have anything going on. And it can take longer if the UAOs request more time to go and mark their facilities ahead of that. So once those phase 2 plans go in for review by the department, the EOR and PM should coordinate with the SU team and pencil in some dates for, say, pedestrian poles, some of those smaller foundations, because you know you're going to go back out there and get them. So you may as well get them on the calendar, and then as soon as you have that information, provide it over to them. That's going to help you get all that information into the utility contact after that phase 2 review is complete. And again, additional SU may be needed after that utility design meeting based on coordination with the UAO. So it doesn't necessarily mean your utility locating is done at phase 2. It just means you want to start and have a lot of that critical stuff done early. Again, this is going to allow adequate time for your SU team to schedule and deliver additional SU prior to that utility contact. The approach overall should result in fewer design changes after the utility contact, making it less likely that a recontact at phase 3 is required as well. Late changes are also one of the biggest culprits for negative float in your utility schedule. One way to avoid design changes after phase 2 is by obtaining concurrence on those critical design foundations early. If you do have those types of changes that occur, make sure you notify your UC as soon as possible. They may be able to provide you with some insight as to what those design changes might actually mean to each UAO. And so maybe we can make an adjustment to the design to maybe impact a small 2-inch telecom rather than, say, an 8-inch water main. The UC can get moving on that coordination as well, so make sure that you're coordinating with them. In the event of a department-initiated scope change, make sure you coordinate with your UC and your UPM to determine the impact on the schedule so it can be assessed by the department. Whether a design change is department-initiated or consultant-initiated, make sure that the district utility office has time to evaluate because they're going to need to determine whether a recontact is going to be required. If a utility recontact is needed for a project, ensure that there's time to collect all documents from all UAOs, not just the ones that are impacted on it, because the dates on those plans have to match. So you've got to get it from all the UAOs. And lastly, don't wait for the schedule item to approach before you start submitting documents for review by the district utility office in construction. That process takes time. They're obviously busy with other things too. So we want to make sure that we're not providing them in huge lumps, of all of your utilities at one time. Make sure that you submit UAO docs for review as soon as you get them. There might be some exceptions if you've got dependent utilities, say joint use tenants that are sitting on power lines and the power lines are being relocated. Those utility work schedules and mark plans need to be reviewed together because they're dependent upon each other. Now, make sure that you submit your UWS or your UIS along with the marked plans. Those documents need to go together too, because again, they're reviewed together. Not submitting those documents in a timely manner inevitably is going to lead to sprint, to try to obtain those last UAO signatures, get that project certified. I'm sure we've all been there, but if we kind of implement some of these best practices overall, I think EORs and project managers can better control the critical path and overall meet your project schedules. With that, does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Well, that concludes our event today. Again, just want to say thank you very much for coming out and being part of this partnership with us and coming to these conversations to give your feedback. And we will look forward to the next event in August. Until then, like I said, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Catalina Chacon with any thoughts on how to make these events all the more useful for you and your staff. So with that, be blessed and be safe. And one more round of applause for our presenters. Thank you. All right, thank you.